WRS.
My guest has cut a dash and a flourish in orchestral pits the world over. This is Lunch with WRS with me, Susan Flory, and I'm joined by British-German conductor Alexander Joel. He's held distinguished positions in various German and Viennese opera houses. He's a graduate of the Vienna Academy of Music. His critics are few in the upper echelons of classical music. His fans, many. He's been praised for his lively, vital style in the pit, his supple but solid command of the structure and phrasing of both music and orchestra. Alexander Joel, great to have you here.
Hi, nice to be here.
Now, Madame Butterfly, Saturday, opening night in Geneva. You're going to be directing Puccini's opera. Are you ready?
Yes, we're in the final stages of the rehearsal process. We got the dress rehearsal tomorrow, and then there's a day off, and then let's see what happens on Saturday.
And it's a 6-night run, is it?
Yeah, goes till the 5th of May.
All right. And how do you prepare for such a performance, such a well-known opera?
Well, we have about 5 weeks of rehearsal for this run. We've been rehearsing every day. You start off with doing scenic musical rehearsals with the singers, with piano, and then you move on to scenic rehearsals. And eventually, about a week ago, 10 days ago, we started with the orchestra. Reading rehearsals with the orchestra alone, and then you take the singers, do the rehearsals with the singers, with the orchestra, and then you do the so-called stage orchestra rehearsals where you put the scenic elements and the musical elements together.
It's the technical side of it, really.
Yeah, and then we did the first run yesterday with the orchestra and costumes and lighting and so on, and today, as I said, tomorrow's a dress rehearsal.
Is it wonderful?
Yes,
is it really
great.
coming together?
It's coming together, and it's a beautiful production, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, am I right in thinking that a large part of your work is done privately? You've got to, get inside your head, get to know the score back to front, formulate your interpretive ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done Butterfly quite a few times. I just did a new production in Hamburg, the State Opera in Hamburg in November, and I've done it before also in Hamburg. I did it in Berlin. I've done it in Braunschweig, where I'm still the music director. So I know the piece well, and I've done a lot of Puccini generally. So,
but the thing is, you just came off La Bohème at Covent Garden, London. You seem to flip and flop from one thing to the other, and we were talking just before we opened the mics. I mean, after opening night, you're off to Dresden to do what?
Don Giovanni.
Giovanni, and then you're doing what else?
Yeah,
I do all over the place.
I do about 15 or 16 or 17 different operas a season. That's different ones, yeah. So I'm just used to it. I've got quite a big repertoire, thank God. So
as guest conductor in all of these different places.
Yeah, I'm Dresden, Berlin, and Hamburg, and of course in Braunschweig, where I'm music director. I'm doing Salome as well, right at the end of the month of May. Beginning of June, yeah. So
this must require enormous mental agility to go from one to the other.
Well, the fortunate thing is, as a conductor, once you've done the pieces a few times, you sort of have them stored somewhere, and once you study them again in a few days, they're sort of back in your head. Hopefully, at least, depending on the piece and depending how well you've studied it and how long ago you've done it.
But you always have a different cast. You've got a different ensemble. You have to, inspire confidence in them. They're musicians. A lot of them might have difficult personalities. I mean, how do you get the control over these people that are sharing this moment with you?
It's a question of chemistry between people. Some orchestras you have a great chemistries and with singers, and some singers you just don't have the right chemistry. That's just the way it is. But usually if you're nice to people, they're nice to you, and if you work well and structured and inspiring, they'll sort of respect you, and you can hope for some good results.
Isn't that the truth? The first part of that answer, if you're nice to people, they're nice back. It just works in life on all levels. Now, what makes a good conductor?
I think you've got to find the various things. You've got to obviously have a very good sense of rhythm. You have to have a very good sense of phrasing. You have to have very good ears to hear things that are wrong in the orchestra or with the singers. And I think also the way you work with an orchestra is very obviously very important. You have to know how to, on the one hand, work very technically with them. So, take an orchestra apart in the sense of taking them technically apart, correcting the things that are wrong, but also inspiring them musically to give them some sort of musical ideas. And I think that combination is what makes it work.
And conductors are the star of the show. I mean, they're viewed by audiences as powerful and glamorous. I mean, what's your style? Are you pretty easygoing, or, you regularly hear of famous conductors who explode in tantrums and are really demanding? What do you like?
Well, it depends what you do. I mean, when you conduct concerts, it's actually fairly easy in the sense you just have rehearsal with the same cast in the orchestra, and you go and rehearse 3 or 4 days or 2 or 3 days and then do the concerts. In opera, it's a much longer process, and you often encounter far greater problems, and it can happen to conductors to lose their temper with stage directors or with singers who don't follow properly, or a bad staging where the singers can't be heard because they're singing at the back and so on. So
have you ever completely gone nuclear? Just lost it?
Yes, I have, actually. Yes, I have. Some stage directors make things so difficult for you as a conductor that you just lose your patience sometimes.
What, they complicate it? They overcomplicate something that should be done simply and purely?
That's right. They overcomplicate things, and you can't hear the singers. And then the critics, right? Yeah, the orchestra was too loud, but actually the singers just can't be heard because they're singing to the back, or they make the most difficult parts musically. They stage them in such a way that the singers can't see you or can't see a monitor. That's the TV screen where they can see the conductor as well, and so nothing's together. It's quite tricky getting opera together, basically.
Very tricky. And you come off, we were talking before we opened the mics, as a very confident fellow. And I would imagine that is key. To do what you do, to be the main guy, the man in the power position in the pit, orchestrating everything, you need bags of confidence.
I think you have to inspire confidence in the people you work with so that they're relaxed. And I think people who are relaxed and confident are people who give their best performances, the musicians. So that's what I try to do.
Have you ever had a moment where a phone's gone off in a hall and you've stopped? The mobile phones, you see this often happening, and you've lost your cool and glared at someone in the audience?
It's happened. No, I haven't glared at anybody. But,
do you stop?
No, I didn't stop. No, it's happened, though, but I haven't stopped.
You just carry on.
I think once I was just about to start and the phone went off, and then I waited. But otherwise, I just go on.
And you started again?
No, I hadn't started yet.
Oh, so. Right. Okay. You're just getting settled
Just getting ready, and it just went off.
All righty. On this Lunch with WRS, with me, Susan Flory, we're getting to know Alexander Joel, conductor of British and German heritage. He is fresh from making his debut with La Bohème in London's Covent Garden. He'll be in the pit at Geneva's Grand Theatre on Saturday, opening night, leading the orchestra in a performance of Madame Butterfly. Now, this isn't your first Swiss experience. You studied here. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I went to school in Rolle, Le Rosé, and was there in boarding school for 4 years, from the age of 14 to 17.
And what did you like? What did you not like at that time as a young lad in Switzerland?
Well, I actually kind of like being in boarding school, because being a teenager is a difficult stage of anybody's life. So it was good to be away from my parents. I think for any teenagers to have a bit of independence was good. And of course, it's a beautiful area of the world, and we could ski, which was great, and I love skiing, so it was good. And of course, that's where I started my musical education. And
your parents were where then? You were boarding school. And they were where? Living where?
Oh, actually, my parents didn't live that far away. They lived just across the border in France, in a place called Mouret, which is between Gex and Divonne, if that says anything to you. I'm sure it does.
Yeah, it sure does.
And yeah, we had a house there, so yeah.
So fond memories of that time?
Yeah, my parents were pretty close. I could see them when I wanted to, if I wanted to. And yeah.
Now, you're just 42. Your profile, it's big, and it's getting bigger. You're guest conducting all over the shop at the most prestigious opera houses and concert halls. But you almost became a lawyer. A bit of a false start.
Yeah, well, it was one of those kind of cliche things, a bit like Dead Poets Society, if anybody's seen that movie. I was in a boarding school full of, people who were becoming bankers and lawyers and businessmen. And my father said, yes, you should do something, do a proper job. And so I started in King's College studying law.
French and English law.
French and English law, and it's a very prestigious course to get into. They only took 20 people out of about 1,000 applicants. And I did a few weeks, and I realized this wasn't for me. I actually passed all my exams at the end of the academic year, but I took a sabbatical from studying law to prepare the entrance exam to get into the conducting class in Vienna. And I got in, thank God, and then I didn't have to go back to study law, thank God.
And you never looked back.
I never looked back, thank God, yeah.
Do you ever take a break from music? I know it's your passion, it's your business, it's your profession, but do you ever just say, oh, I can't listen to a symphony, I have to get the score out of my head, I am going to watch action movies this weekend, back to back?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. I try to take a break in the summer. I'm usually very tired by June, and then I usually have a summer break. I have a lovely little summer house, summer apartment on a lake in Austria, and I try to just go there and relax and swim, and I try to go skiing in the winter if I can, but I usually don't have very much time, unfortunately.
Well, speaking of time, I went on your website to see what your calendar's looking like, and it is jammed. In the months ahead, you're going to be doing new productions of Macbeth in Copenhagen, Parsifal in Montpellier, Othello in Santiago. How do you keep up with yourself?
Yeah, it's tough. You have to keep working, and the traveling is very tiring as well. I often have to wake up. And now in November, I was traveling between Hamburg and Oslo. I was waking up almost every day at about 4 or 5 and taking early morning flights to make rehearsals at 10 in Oslo or in Hamburg. It really starts getting to you after a while.
So is your home in Vienna then? I mean, aside from the planes and the hotels and the concert halls, is Vienna home?
Yeah, that's where my mother lives. That's where my friends are, actually. And I grew up in Vienna, and that's really my home, yeah.
Alexander Joel, your mastery of the piano, do you think maybe it's in your genes? Because you are the half-brother of Billy Joel. You share the same dad, the piano man, the American singer-songwriter of much renown. Do you think you've got a little bit of genetic material that allows you to become the piano man?
Well, my father was very musical, and his father, our grandfather. So my father could have probably been a musician, but he emigrated to Germany from Germany in the 30s to Cuba and then to New York being of Jewish descent. They had to get out. So and then obviously he couldn't really practice the piano anymore. He had to leave when he was 13 or 14. So it's a shame. So I think we both got the musical gene from our father. Are
you close to your half brother?
Yeah.
Very. Are we ever going to see a joint production of some sort in the future?
No, I don't think so.
You're just at polar extremes, aren't you, in terms of what you do?
Yeah, we actually played on 2 pianos together once a few years ago in a sort of concert in Nuremberg.
Oh gosh, can we see that on your website or on YouTube or somewhere?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's anywhere. He was doing a concert for a sort of question and answers evening, which he often does, and I was translating for him actually for the German audience, and then we played a bit of a Beethoven symphony, actually 6 Beethoven, on 2 pianos.
Wow. Quite a moment. I would have loved to have been in the audience. Speaking of Beethoven, I asked you to tell me what your favorite piece of symphonic music is. Should we get that up for you now and you set it up for us?
Yeah, this is Beethoven's 3rd Symphony, the so-called Eroica, which is one of my favorite pieces of music ever since I was a student. And it's conducted by a wonderful conductor called Vladimir Fedoseev with the Moscow Radio Orchestra.
I was going to hit play, but I'm not sure of the start of it. Is it crashing or is it gentle?
It's quite loud, yeah.
All right, so let's get into it, and then we'll fade it under and you can tell us a little bit more about the conductor, your favorite. I have to say, looking at you, there was a lot of head movement there. Are you in the pit just now?
Yeah, I love this piece. That's the 3rd movement.
Moscow's Radio Symphony, and it's Symphony Number 3 in E-flat major.
Yeah, and Vladimir Fedoseev is one of the conductors I sort of studied with as a student. He did a masterclass in Vienna about 15 years ago, and I took part in that. So, and I used to go watch him a lot rehearse in Vienna, actually, because he was the music director of the Vienna Symphony Orchestra. And so as I was in Vienna at that time as well, I saw him rehearse a lot and learned a lot from him, actually.
Who else do you admire within your ranks?
Well, it's no secret that everybody who's a conductor admires Carlos Kleiber. He was without any doubt the greatest conductor. But Karajan as well, of course. Unbelievable conductors.
And is there a contemporary that's, I mean, you're very young, 42 is quite young. Do you have someone that you admire who you can draw a parallel with in terms of the trajectory of your career?
I was very fortunate to meet Fabio Luisi, who was actually the music director here in the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande in the 90s and early till I think 2002 or 2003. I'm a very big fan of his. I learned a lot of stuff from him. Of course, there's also Tony Pappano, who's the music director in the Covent Garden, who I met just recently while I was there, and he was actually here just a few days ago with his Orchestre Accademia di Santa Cecilia, and I saw him rehearse, and he's a wonderful, wonderful conductor.
If you could travel back through time, which composer would you like to be your best friend? Your number one, let's hang out, let's go have drinks, let's talk music.
I can tell you who I wouldn't be. It wouldn't be Beethoven because he was deaf, so I probably wouldn't have much conversation with him.
You'd have to really be good with sign language.
Yeah. Puccini, he's one of my favorite composers, and his music is something I relate to very strongly.
Well, it's going to be a great night on Saturday, isn't it? And for the next 5 in Geneva,
it should
Madame
be fun.
Butterfly. So what's special about you doing it? What are you going to bring that little bit extra that if someone else was in the pit, we might not see on Saturday and the other nights for the run?
Well, actually, that's up to other people to judge. It's very difficult to talk about my own conducting. It's up to other people to say what they
But you must know from what people have said, the little bit of extra pizzazz. I mean, your style is slightly different.
I don't know what's. I would just say that I try to always look for a flowing feeling in the music, and to try and find a good musical line for the singers to be able to sing. And so all my interpretations of Puccini operas especially always actually are different, because I always try to adjust it to the singers that I work with. So they're always slightly different depending on the voices. Have
you ever had a moment where you've, to put it, well, just messed up a little or a lot during a performance, and you've been saved by the integrity of the piece of music? As, it's often said that the finest pieces of music, you can't really ruin them.
Well, I've made mistakes. It happens to all of us. I mean, you conduct hundreds of hours or thousands of hours a year. You're bound to make a mistake at some point. And sometimes it all should just played anyway, regardless of what I've done, thank God. So, yeah.
And later you do the post-mortem, you say, hey, guys, great save, great save.
Yeah, I always thank them, yes. Unfortunately, it happened in a Tristan performance. I gave a wrong cue and nobody played, thank God. So, yeah, can happen.
Now, we're just sadly drawing to a close here. That's all the time we've got. If you had to quit conducting the world's great symphony orchestras tomorrow, what can you see yourself doing instead? If there was no choice involved, that was it. What else would you do?
It would depend on how good I was at what I could do. I'd love to be a football player or a professional skier, but only if I was really good.
Beckham standard.
At least Lionel Messi. Anything below that, I wouldn't be interested in. And skiing, I'd love to be a skier. Something like Hermann Mayer. One of these.
Didier Couch.
Didier Couch, yes, yeah. But actually, more realistically, I love cooking. Actually, so I could totally imagine being.
Do you have a signature dish? If you invited everyone round for dinner tonight, what would we eat?
Lots of kinds of things I like doing. I love cooking spaghetti carbonara. That's one of my favorite
dishes. Calorie bang, love it. But I suppose you don't really have to watch it because you're so energetic. You're in the pit all over the world at airports, so you probably don't really have to watch that because you put out so much energy.
No, the problem is you put on weight when you conduct because you always go out and eat afterwards and have a beer because you're so thirsty, and then you usually end up putting on weight, actually, unfortunately.
Well, I will tell everyone, this is radio, so you can't see. He's very slim, very fit looking. Alexander Joel, conductor, you are going to be in the pit at Geneva's Grand Theatre for Saturday's opening night of a 6-night run of Madame Butterfly. It's sold out. I think the opening night is sold up. You can still get tickets. And if you can't get yourself down to Geneva, you're listening to us in Zurich, say, oh, shame. There will be a recording of it on Radio Espace 2 RTS on the 8th of June. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Alexander Joel, our guest on Lunch with WRS.